Hello and welcome. My name is Matthew Jarecki and I am the Jerk. It is great to be in with you guys on a Thursday morning. On a day we're supposed to have little to no sports news, we are absolutely packed. I could not wait to get into it. We just had some breaking news about Rick Pitino and the Louisville basketball program. We'll get into that later. But for right now, the biggest news of the day, McGregor, Mayweather, it is happening. We are on KLJX-LP 107.1 Flagstaff, Arizona, KJACKradio.com, Facebook Live. You can call in 928-5234-554. So McGregor Mayweather, August 26th, Las Vegas, T-Mobile Arena. They're going to fight in 10-ounce gloves. They're going to weigh 154 pounds. It will be a boxing match. It could be, as far as money goes, the biggest fight of all time. Right now, it's projected to make just under what Mayweather-Pacquiao made. McGregor's going to quadruple his net worth in one night. Mayweather's going to make somewhere around $200 million. And to put this fight in perspective, Pacquiao-Mayweather reeled in $623 million total after everything. Mayweather alone raked in $220 million. It is being projected that this fight will be just as big, and it could get bigger. The promotion for this fight hasn't even begun yet. We are now just one day out from the contract being signed. I was hanging out with some buddies last night. It's all I'm seeing on social media. It's all my buddies are talking about, even if they're not huge sports fans. And surprisingly, even though none of my buddies make a ton of money, they're asking me to go in 3 ways to buy this thing with them. I wouldn't be surprised if this fight, all things said and done, surpasses the projected profitability, surpasses Pacquiao-Mayweather. Darren Rovell, ESPN's financial reporter. He does all things sports finance. He has great information. Darren Rovell reports from ticket sales at T-Mobile Arena, ballpark figures around 70 mil. That's what they're going to make this fight. 70 mil on ticket sales. Pay-per-view prices. They're going to be anywhere from $100 to $120. We don't know the exact number yet, but it's expected that more people are going to watch this fight than Mayweather-Pacquiao. You can expect this thing to make about 460 mil on just pay-per-view sales. You can expect another 15 million from advertising, about $1 million more from merchandise, and you'll see some money from gambling as well. When you all add it up, this fight is projected to make about 600 million. It's going to be either the first or second biggest fight of all time between UFC's biggest star and boxing's biggest star. Now, what does this fight mean for each guy? Let's start with Mayweather. He's a little bit of a bigger star. I would say McGregor's more relevant right now, but Mayweather has been more dominant in his sport. He's made more money, and overall, he's been the biggest star. Now, Mayweather is 49-0 in his career. He's made piles of money. If he wins, it ain't much of a legacy changer for Mayweather. However, if Mayweather loses this fight, it's a big loss. His brand is perfection, 49-0. If his only loss comes to a guy that doesn't even play the sport, across America, people will pile on. People are rooting for McGregor in this fight. They're going to pile on if he loses. People have been waiting for Mayweather to get his butt kicked for a long time because he's arrogant. He's made piles of money. He's not responsible with that money. And I think the biggest thing is he has a history of violence against women. So it is locked in. People are rooting for McGregor in this fight. Now, the boxing world, they're embarrassed by this fight, so they're rooting for Mayweather to blow the lid off this thing and win in round 1. But the rest of America, they see Mayweather, they see a guy that's rich, arrogant, and beats women. They want McGregor to win this fight. Nevertheless, Mayweather has told us he's all about the money, and he's already won this fight in some ways because he'll collect another $200 million on this fight. Now, what about McGregor? To me, this fight has almost no downside for McGregor. He'll more than quadruple his net worth. Right now, his net worth is reportedly only $22 million. You don't make that much money from the UFC. It's going to jump to somewhere around $122 million in one night. If he loses this fight, he was supposed to lose. It ain't going to change McGregor's UFC legacy. It's not going to affect much of McGregor's legacy at all if he loses this fight. He was supposed to lose. You know, boxing's a completely different sport than the UFC. Although they're both combat sports, they train differently. Reaction skills are different. The technical side of strictly boxing without being able to kick or wrestle, it's going to be a whole nother world for Conor McGregor. However, if McGregor wins this fight by some miracle knockout, the public perception will be McGregor is the legend that made $100 million knocking out a woman beater in the woman beater's own arena. It will be legendary. So there's really, to me, no downside for Conor McGregor, which explains why he wanted this fight so badly. But what about the UFC and what about boxing? How does it affect each of those leagues respectively? For me, this was a desperate look for boxing. It reminds me of the people that pay for Twitter followers or washed-up celebrities that go on reality shows. It's a cry out for attention. I think the rest of the boxing world is embarrassed by it. If you read articles, none of the other boxers like this. However, none of the other boxers are making $200 million. I think boxing is largely dead. I think it's clinging to Mayweather. I think Mayweather's carried boxing for the last 10 years. And I think Mayweather probably walks away with his $200 million, defeats Conor McGregor, and retires after this. For the UFC, I don't think there's any loss here. I think everything is to gain for the UFC during this fight. I mean, that's the league so far that has its management figured out. It's the fastest growing sport in the world. Recognizable stars on both the women's and men's side of things. I think this fight is actually more about McGregor personally, who's now a star in general, not just a UFC star. I think it's more about McGregor than it is about the UFC. I really don't think this fight affects UFC's brand a whole lot. I mean, it looks good on Dana White, got the deal done. It looks good on Dana White that he did a favor for one of his main stars or his main star. And all things considered, this fight has a very special feel to it, doesn't it? I mean, we love witnessing things that we've never seen before. We love urgency. We love scarcity. I think this fight brings all of that to the table. We all know McGregor's about to lose this fight, but we're still very curious. We want to see what it looks like for a UFC fighter to box against the best boxer of his generation. It reminds me, you know what it reminds me of a lot? It reminds me of these fast food companies when they release their new concoctions. Like right now, Taco Bell has these chicken chips, literally chips made out of chicken. And you think to yourself, that is disgusting. But I've never tried a chip made out of chicken. Let's go get 3 orders. You know, we already know the outcome of this fight, basically. Mayweather opened as a negative 1,100 favorite to win. He's now minus 600 because of all the money that was put on McGregor. But even still, you have to bet $600 flat to make $100 on Mayweather winning. So are you really going to, you know, if you have $1,000 in your bank account right now, are you really going to risk that to make like $300? I don't think so. So, you know, I think this fight's going to be big. I think it could get bigger than Mayweather-Pacquiao. I was talking to a bunch of my friends all through my social media. This is, you know, this was being reposted by people I had no idea liked sports. I think people love the unknown, the scarcity of this, and I think people want to see, I think people want to put this into perspective. What does it look like? How much better, how much different is boxing than UFC? How much better of a striker and a defender is Mayweather than McGregor when it comes to boxing. This fight's going to put all of that into perspective. It's probably going to be a terrible fight. I am going to go in 3 ways and buy it with my friends, and I'm going to watch the whole thing. I'm very interested in this fight, I have to admit. Now, boxing savants, UFC savants, they're going to tell you this fight is dog poop. And it probably is. But I think it's more interesting than Mayweather-Pacquiao. All right, after the break, I have something, it's so interesting. 2 of basketball's biggest insiders sat down together, talked about the NBA, talked about the future of the Cavs. If you like LeBron, if you want to know what his next move might be, these 2 guys sitting down in a room and talking together was very, very telling. And we'll get to that after the break. I'm Matthew Jarecki. This is The Jerk. Welcome back to The Jerk. I'm Matthew Jarecki. I am The Jerk, KLJX-LP, 107.1 FM, Flagstaff, Arizona. You can catch us on KJACKradio.com. You can call in 928-5234-554, 928-5234-554. Go to my Facebook page, The Jerk Show. I'm on Facebook Live right now if you want to see my face. I don't know why you would want to see that, but I found something very, very interesting yesterday. So, Adrian Wojnarowski, one of the most respected and involved basketball reporters in our country, has his own website. It's called The Vertical with Woj. He also has a front office insider, Bobby Marks, who worked for the Brooklyn Nets and the New Jersey Nets for 20 years as an executive. They sat down. These are 2 guys that have some of the most inside NBA information out of all the reporters in our country, and they sat down for a podcast together, and they talked about the future of the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I just want to relay what I learned for you guys. So basically, here's the first thing. And this is the thing I found most intriguing. If the Cavs bring back this same group of players that they have right now, if they just bring everybody back, they will be in the luxury tax for $85 million based on the fact that they've been in the luxury 2 years in a row. $85 million. So you can assume right now, because they're going to bring Kyrie, LeBron, and Kevin Love back, their luxury tax will be somewhere around $80 million. Now, luxury tax, you don't get to pay that in installments. Luxury tax in the NBA, for those of you who don't know, is when you go over the salary cap and you have to pay a tax for it. So you're allowed to go over the salary cap as long as you pay that tax. So you're already, as an owner, paying your guys more than the league says you can. And then because you pay your players so much, you have to pay the league more money on top of that, and you don't see any return on that money. At least when you're paying your players, they could bring you a championship, as the Cavs did last year. When you pay that luxury tax, you see none of that money, and guess what? You got to pay that money in one lump sum. There are no payment plans for a luxury tax unless you're winning championships. Paying the luxury tax in the NBA is one of the most cringeworthy things for an owner that loves money. These owners get rich because they've saved their money well and they've been smart with their money. There's nothing more cringeworthy for an owner to do than to pay that luxury tax and not win championships. That's what Dan Gilbert did this last year that they just lost to Kevin Durant. And that's what he'll do next year, only this time it'll be $85 million. The other thing I found interesting, Cavs don't have a draft pick until 2021. They're going to have a lot of trouble making moves to make this team better this offseason. Listen, David Griffin, The GM in Cleveland, he's known in league circles as one of the best GMs in the league. He's got probably the first or second toughest job in the league, because think about it. He's got to try to piece together a team around the Love contract, the LeBron James contract, the Kyrie Irving contract. Not to mention, he also works for two of the toughest guys to work for in the NBA, LeBron James and Dan Gilbert. I think the untold story here that you'll find out if you listen to Adrian Wojnarowski talk, the Cleveland front office is a lot better than people think. David Griffin, their GM, holds that thing together. He's kept very good scouts inside that building that have been offered higher positions elsewhere. And if he doesn't get a new deal, he's out of there at the end of this month. Good luck bringing somebody else in there with those three big contracts that's going to be able to make this team significantly better this offseason. And here's what we know. After all of that, here's what we know about Cleveland heading into next season. Barring a far-fetched Paul George trade, straight up Paul George for Kevin Love, that's probably not going to happen. They're not going to get significantly better this offseason. And LeBron's going to be a year older heading into next season. The Golden State Warriors are not getting any worse heading into next season. We also know David Griffin, who's holding that front office together, could be gone by the end of this month. And the other thing we know about this Cavs team, after next year, after next season, LeBron's going to be a free agent. Here's Adrian Wojnarowski talking about whether free agents even want to come to Cleveland anymore.
It is one thing to go championship. It is one thing to go take that veteran minimum in the past with the Lakers, with the Clippers, with Golden State. It's one thing to do it in Miami. I'm talking about places near the water, places that have always traditionally been cities that attract free agents. And if I'm going to take less, hey, I'll go. It is harder to do that in Cleveland. I think it's easier if you think they're the favorite and I'm going to win. Yeah, you go to Cleveland, but I don't know that there's a guy saying, if I go to Cleveland next year, we're going to win the championship. And so I think while they'll still have a market, Bobby, for that guy who might take a little bit less near the end of his career, or the guy in the one-year deal like a JaVale McGee who's trying to rebuild his value and would go, I think Cleveland's a little bit less of an attraction because there's still a gap between they and Golden State. You're really not going to be that confident you're going to win a title there.
So, what Adrian Wojnarowski's telling you there, as one of the most connected guys in the NBA, free agents don't want to play for Cleveland anymore. That's the dirty little secret. That's one of the chain reactions of Kevin Durant going over to Golden State. People don't want to play in Cleveland anymore. They don't even think Cleveland has a shot to win. And you're not moving your family to Cleveland unless you know you're winning a championship. So here's what we know. Free agents don't want to go to the Cleveland Cavaliers right now. They're not getting Paul George, it doesn't look like. David Griffin, their GM, who holds that front office together, he might be leaving. LeBron's a free agent after this summer. What does that tell you? What does that tell you about what LeBron James might do in the future? Front office falling apart, contract situations a mess, Dan Gilbert doesn't want to keep paying these luxury taxes. I think after next season, and I do think the Cavs will be in the championship again, and I do think they'll lose again, with this Golden State team only gelling more before next year's finals, and Kevin Durant's still going to be there, and Steph Curry's still going to be the same player, and so are Clay and Draymond. I think LeBron loses again next year, and I think if he does, he's leaving Cleveland, baby, because they don't have the cap room to bring in anybody else. Kevin Love's only getting older. Kyrie Irving's injury prone, and David Griffin, the great GM over there, might be out. We have heard rumors that LeBron is looking very carefully. What are the Miami Heat doing right now? What are the Los Angeles Lakers doing right now? What if Paul George goes out to LA and they already have Lonzo and they already have Brandon Ingram 20 points a game? Just something to think about. Because if I'm LeBron James, and if I lose again next year, and Golden State's not going anywhere, and we don't have the cap room to bring in another star in Cleveland, LeBron's a big game hunter at this point. He doesn't mess around with losing finals. He's too big. He is too high profile, first of all, to not go to finals. Second of all, to not win finals, because every finals LeBron James loses puts a little dent in his legacy, because perception becomes reality, and the perception now is LeBron's 3-5 in finals. All right, after the break, big news just dropped. Rick Pitino's going to be suspended a couple games this year. Sanctions are coming down on Louisville. And it's all surrounding a sex scandal in the men's basketball program for Louisville. We'll be back after the break. I'm Matthew Jarecki. This is The Jerk. Welcome back to The Jerk. I'm Matthew Jarecki. I am The Jerk. 107.1 FM, Flagstaff, Arizona, KLJX-LP. Catch us on KJACKradio.com on your phone. You can catch me on Facebook Live. Go to my Twitter, @The Jerk Show. Go to my Facebook page, The Jerk with Jarecki. So we just got news. This is big. It's kind of a joke, but it's big. Louisville coach Rick Pitino will be suspended. According to ESPN.com, he's going to be suspended for the first 5 ACC games next year because he oversaw an alleged sex for pay scandal. Sounds like prostitution to me. I don't know about anybody else, but sex for pay sounds like prostitution. He's only going to be suspended for 5 games. The big news was, and this came out like a year ago, or maybe 2 years ago, but the big news was his assistant, Andre McGee, he hired strippers to entertain players and recruits, and Katina Powell, who was one of the escorts, she came out, and she told everybody about it, and I think she profited from it. But, this is kind of funny, right? First of all, I have a lot of questions about this whole situation. Number one, why in the world do you need to pay escorts to entertain your players? These are college basketball players, all tall, muscly dudes, big men on campus. They can go get their own girls. They don't need strippers. Go to a sorority house. Why do you need to pay strippers to entertain your players? That's my first question about this whole thing. These are alpha males on campus. They can fend for themselves when it comes to women. So that's the first question I have about this whole thing. It seems kind of weird that a coach would have to pay for women to entertain these athletes when they're the alpha dogs on campus. I think often basketball players get even more attention from girls than the football players because they're tall and in shape. Football players are a lot of times fat, chunky. So that's my first question. Let's just be practical about this whole thing. If you really wanted some female entertainment, just send the boys over to the sorority house or get sororities to come over to your house. You don't need to pay escorts. By the way, escorts usually aren't very attractive. I'm just saying, not that I've ever seen one before. But anyway, the second thing about this that I found very interesting. So Rick Pitino, I've always had this theory about college sports. College sports and college coaches, it is the grimiest atmosphere in our whole American sports landscape. First of all, the players don't get paid. Some would say they're getting exploited. The coaches get paid just as much as pro coaches. These basketball coaches, they get paid just as much as the pro coaches. They have the everlasting love of their fan base that pro coaches don't get. They get more power than any pro coach you'll find. But when a sanction comes down like this, there's so much love and respect for Rick Pitino, he doesn't get any of the fallout that a pro coach would get. Rick Pitino is padded by pillows and fans that would hold him up. After a case like this, Rick Pitino will still be beloved in Louisville. He'll serve his 5 games, and the fact that he oversaw a pay-for-sex violation, or in other words, prostitutes, he'll still be beloved in Louisville after this situation. It's so funny because the college coaches, especially in basketball, they get more power and control over their teams than any other. They're going to get more power than any pro coach out of the 30 leagues the 30 teams in the NBA. They have more power over their team. Yet, when a pay-for-sex violation comes down, apparently Rick Pitino knew nothing about it. It's just funny to me. I got to read more about this. The news just broke this morning. Rick Pitino is going to be suspended for the first 5 games of the season. Oversaw a sex-for-pay operation. Apparently, he knew nothing about it. He'll only serve 5 games for prostitution. I don't know why you need a... I don't know why. I think the thing that's most troubling to me, why do you need to get your alpha male, tall, in-shape athletes, a lot of them are handsome, and they're on a college campus full of girls? Why do you need to buy them prostitutes? Often prostitutes are not even as attractive as college girls. Not that I've ever seen a prostitute before. Okay, we'll be back after the break. We got some NFL news. Bill Belichick said something funny again. And Jerry West looks like he's going to be going to the Clippers. Be back after the break. I'm Matthew Jarecki. This is The Jerk. Welcome back to The Jerk. I'm Matthew Jarecki. I am The Jerk. Big news today. Isn't it convenient? The NBA Finals end like a day after Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather signed their contract. It's just funny. It's funny how the sports media landscape or the sports media cycle just keeps churning. I love it. Gives me something to talk about. I would assume Mayweather and McGregor had this thing worked out during the NBA Finals. I would assume they waited until it would get the most publicity, and it was a smart move. So far, it looks like Mayweather's going to be earning around $200 million from this fight. There's a lot of excitement. It hasn't even been promoted yet. We're going to see race baiting. We're going to see Conor McGregor's mouth going wild. Mayweather's not much of a talker. He's not very well-spoken either. And they're going to play the card. Somebody's going to play the card. The white man wants to beat up the black woman beater. Somebody's going to play that race card. You watch. This is what happens with these fights. It's happened, every time one of these big fights comes around and the fighters aren't the same color, somebody goes out and pins white against black, or black against Mexican, or Mexican against white. Happens every single time. You're going to see it this time, too. The other story today, Rick Pitino suspended 5 games at the beginning of this next basketball season because he oversaw prostitution. They call it a sex for pay situation. It's prostitution. That is prostitution right there, which I just don't get. I just don't understand why you need to pay prostitutes, basketball players on a college campus, especially Louisville, when, some of these players are going into the NBA. These guys are alpha dogs on campus. The Louisville basketball players are more alpha than the Louisville football players. The basketball program's better. They don't need to pay prostitutes. They can get any girl they want on that college campus, and they're paying probably uglier prostitutes. I'm sorry, I just don't get that. But a story just came out, and I think it's very interesting. Michael Bennet says that Colin Kaepernick's lack of having a team, shows a gap between players and fans. He says, and I quote, "I think the league is built on middle America, and most of the middle America is predominantly a white crowd. That's just the truth of it. I think race is not something that the NFL wants to be a part of or get behind. But the league is predominantly African American. So the issue that he's dealing with is what we're all dealing with. We all come from the inner city, or we've been a part of communities where we felt like we've been judged because of the color of our skin. He said there's obviously an elephant in the room why Kaepernick isn't signed, and most people know why. I've said this several times, and I'm not afraid to say it. I think race and politics in sports is something people don't want to hear about, nor do people want to be a part of. End quote. That's what Michael Bennet said. He's a D lineman for the Seattle Seahawks, great player. That's what he said about Colin Kaepernick not having a team right now. I would argue I get where he's coming from. I think he's right that football fans, a lot of them come from middle America. I think a large percentage of the people that watch football are white. I do think he's right about that. Here's where I think he's wrong. I don't think NFL teams care at all about the racial aspect of Colin Kaepernick. I think there's a lot of black coaches in the NFL. I think NFL teams don't like distractions. And whether you like it or not, Colin Kaepernick, literally, when he enters your team, brings 20 cameras with him and 20 reporters with him looking for a story. The media in America is sensationalistic. They're looking for the big story, the interesting story, maybe not the true story. And Colin Kaepernick is one of the most divisive subjects in our country. That's why he brings 20 cameras with him. That's why he brings 20 journalists with him wherever he goes. And I think the other thing Michael Bennet is missing on, I don't think middle of America cares at all about this Colin Kaepernick situation. I don't think anybody really cares. I think there's some people that get behind it, and I think there's some radical people that hate it. But I think for the most part, nobody really cares about this Colin Kaepernick stance except for the media. The media loves this story. It gives them something to talk about. It gives them a divisive topic to write an article about. But I think the general population of America could care less what Colin Kaepernick's political stances are. I think the general population of America, if Colin Kaepernick helped your team win, would fully accept Colin Kaepernick on their team. But the facts are, he's a backup quarterback in the NFL right now. You can give me his stats from last year. If you watch him play, he's a backup quarterback in the NFL. He was once a great quarterback, but then he went vegan, lost a bunch of weight, focused less on the game of football, and lost Jim Harbaugh as his coach. Since then, he's been garbage. As far as his play goes, he's been garbage. And does an NFL team, NFL is the most covert sport in America, does an NFL team that is so covert and has to deal with so much media as it is, do they want to bring in a guy as their backup quarterback that's not going to help them win as it is, but that is also going to bring in 20 more cameramen and 20 more journalists into their organization? I mean, they got enough to deal with. I don't see the positive right now. I really don't. What is the positive to bringing in Colin Kaepernick to your football team? He's not a proven winner over the last 3 years. All right. Be back after the break. I'm Matthew Jarecki. This is The Jerk.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome back to The Jerk. I'm Matthew Jarecki. I am The Jerk. Great show today. So much sports news that just dropped after the NBA Finals. I was expecting to struggle through this week. It's been a nice week as far as sports information goes. Mayweather will be fighting McGregor on August 26th, I believe it is. It's either the 26th or the 25th. Mayweather's going to make about $200 million on this fight. He's got everything to lose. McGregor's going to make about $100 million on this fight. He's only worth $20 million right now. He's going to quadruple his net worth. He's going to be worth $122 million or more after this fight. It's going to be one of the biggest boxing events in history, and it's going to be a total joke. Mayweather will most likely destroy Conor McGregor, but we will all watch. I will watch because we love the unknown. We love scarcity. That's number one. That fight is settled, and we've been waiting for this for months and months and months. And I have a feeling they had that thing settled during the NBA Finals, but it was smart by them to wait until after the Finals. And now it's the main topic on every radio show around the country today. And the second thing that you can take away from today's show, the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to pay $85 million or somewhere around that ballpark in luxury tax next year to keep this big three together, and to just add veterans on the veteran minimum. It's going to be $85 million in luxury tax because they're doing it 2 years in a row, and they're most likely not going to win the championship next year. So Dan Gilbert's getting fed up. David Griffin, who holds that front office together, might be gone. And guess what? If they lose another championship, LeBron's a free agent at the end of next year. He ain't going to be in Cleveland much longer. I have a feeling LeBron will be out of Cleveland after next year's finals. That's the second thing you can take away from today's show. The third thing, Rick Pitino, kind of a dirtbag. He's going to be suspended 5 games at the beginning of next season. And it's because he oversaw a prostitution scandal. They're calling it, all of these news stories for some reason are calling it a sex for pay scandal. Isn't that what prostitution is? You pay somebody to have sex with you? It's a prostitution ring. So Rick Pitino oversaw that. Apparently, he knew nothing about it, although college basketball coaches have the most control over their team, and it's a smaller team than any other coaches in professional or college sports. Rick Pitino's still going to be beloved by his fans if they have a winning season next year. And he's just going to slide on by with that. He literally had a prostitution ring within his basketball program, and everything's going to be hunky-dory for Rick Pitino over there in Louisville. And the thing I took away from that story, I mean, we all know college sports is just a grimy place where the coaches get away with more and get paid more and get more fan love than any other coaches, even in pro sports. It's a weird place. The thing I took away from that Rick Pitino prostitution situation, why did they need to pay girls to have sex with their alpha male college athletes? That makes absolutely no sense to me on a college campus when, especially at Louisville, because the basketball program is better than the football program, those players are the alpha males on campus. Why in the world do you need to get prostitutes for them? Makes absolutely no sense to me. But it is an interesting story, and it is good to know about Rick Pitino. All right, we are on 107.1 KLJX-LP, Flagstaff, Arizona. This is The Jerk, 9 to 10 a.m. every single weekday. I will be here for you guys. It's the only sports radio show, talk show, that is broadcast out of Flagstaff, Arizona. I am Flagstaff's own. You can catch us on @The Jerk Show on Twitter. You can go to the Facebook page, The Jerk with Matthew Jarecki. You can hit me up on Twitter. Just type in my name, Matthew Jarecki, Jarecki. You can catch the podcast on all those platforms. We'll be back tomorrow, at 9 o'clock to end the week. It's going to be a great show. I'm Matthew Jarecki. This has been The Jerk.